Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Industry Chats with Affixify. We are on our second episode this week, which is a first. We've never done back to back. I am your host, CEO, and founder of Affixify, Jasmine Saliga, and I am joined today by industry veteran and somewhat of a celebrity, James Hansen, who has been a hotelier for many years, but now is working for a partner company of ours, Reeco. James, thank you for joining us today.
It's amazing to be here. Thank you for that kind introduction, Jasmine. Celebrity is a word that I haven't heard very often, but I'll take it.
Maybe your kids, you can show them and they'll think
That's right.
you're way cooler.
That's right. That's right. I'll show them the video or something and they'll think that's real cool.
I love it. Well, James, thank you so much. I've been excited for this conversation. I think today we're definitely going to touch on the hot topic of AI as it relates to hotel operations. But before we get into all of that, tell us a little bit about you and, of course, about Reeco. I could talk about Reeco because I'm very passionate about what you guys are doing, but I'd love to hear from you just a little bit more.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Jasmine. I won't go on about myself because that would lull the audience to sleep. But I've been around the industry about 25 years or so, hotel space. I started in hospitality right out of college, worked through various ownership, third-party management companies, a little bit with some of the brands, ultimately ending my hotel career in the development side. So, think about doing management contracts, acquiring and disposing of hotels through transactions. Really took an interest in that about halfway through my hotel career, into my hotel career, and really took a liking to it. And as it would happenstance would happen, would come about that I met the co-founders of my firm, Reeco, while I was I was actually a chief development officer role with an organization, and a fellow colleague. As we know in our hotel space, we always kind of all stay tethered. And a friend who was a colleague at one point and remains a friend introduced me to Henrik and Omri, our co-founders here at Reeco. And I was so impressed with the technology, which we'll get a bit into, that when the first time I met them, we had dinner, discussed what they were doing and how they were going to shake up the industry, particularly the procurement segment of the industry. I immediately thought to myself, I want to know more, I want to learn more, but man, I wish I had that technology when I was, operating hotels. And so I was really turned on to what they were doing. And as a matter of fact, I wanted to learn more, wanted to be a part of what was happening with their innovation and technology, that they were kind enough to offer me a spot on the advisory board for Reeco. So that's how I first engaged about 2 years ago. Became a full-time team member this last December. I decided to move from the advisory side and make a crazy leap into the technology space. Obviously still supporting hotels, so in hospitality. And I'll real quick do a elevator pitch, if you will, on Reeco and what we're about. So Reeco is a AI-driven procure to pay solution for hotels, specifically built for hotels, for hotel operators. What's really unique about our solution is it was created with the idea of hoteliers first. I know that doesn't sound earth-shaking or innovative, but believe it or not, most of the technology that has been out there is older technology. It wasn't developed thoughtfully for the actual operator, the people who are using the technology. In our case, the chefs, the general managers, the food and beverage directors, the executive housekeepers and engineers at hotels, folks who are placing orders every single day. We've taken this approach to simplify the procurement process, and using innovation and using AI, which we'll talk a bit more in our discussion about. We're making that process so much simpler. We're making it so easy that we're actually giving those folks that I mentioned, we're giving them time back in their hectic days. If you know a thing or two about hotels, particularly post-COVID, is the expectation has come that GMs and operators in hotels and everybody involved in the hotel operating side has been asked to do so much more with so much less time, less resources. So that's where a real pain point is that Reeco addresses through our technology, through our platform, through our entire procurement flow. We'll get a bit more into that, exactly how it works and define that. But we're bringing this, and what's really nice about our solution is we've made the user experience. So the folks who are actually using the product and solution, we made it super easy. I often tell people, if you've ever heard of this thing called Amazon and you've purchased something on Amazon before, then you can be an experienced user on Reeco's platform, because we've made it so user friendly, so intuitive, and very it's a feel good app. You feel good when you're using it. Feel good solution on your computer or your laptop at work. So I'm excited to talk more about it and delve into it. But we're simplifying procurement. It's what we're doing. We're using technology and innovation to do that, and freeing up people's time, giving them time back, bringing savings and value to ownership groups, to management companies, and ultimately to the team members at the hotels that are using our platform.
I love that. I think, well, first of all, I would have never known you just joined full time in the last year, because you just sold it like you founded it. I'm so impressed.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting, and I can vouch for this, being an unbiased platform of what we are, there was a time when we first launched last year where like the number one thing hotels told us they wanted to learn about was procurement and Reeco, because what I learned is that this is such an antiquated category that you guys come in and you modernize something that clearly needed to be modernized for a long time. And it really has made waves. I think it's, I have not been a hotel operator, but talking to those of you who have, I'm like, wow, this really came in and shook some things up. So
yeah,
I'm not surprised at all that you wanted to get in on it. And I think what I can appreciate, and our listeners can, is that you have the background experience of a hotelier and an operator and an owner. So you actually can truly speak to these pain points. And of course, anyone selling can, but it's not just learned for you, like you've lived it. So
right.
what this is solving, this type of technology is solving for hoteliers.
Yeah, Jasmine, I think you bring up a really valid couple of points. As a career salesperson, sales guy myself, I think you have to believe in what you're selling and believe in your solution or your product or your widget, whatever it might be. What I was really sold on, going back to that first meeting that I mentioned in our overview there, is like, this is a solution that obviously is addressing a pain point that's been around for a long time. For example, some of the older technology that's still currently being used. I mean, even till today, my colleagues, Bill and my sales team, we have discussions with hotel operators that are using a technology that was actually developed in 1997. It's a punch-out technology, which is still used universally throughout hotels in the U.S. and not just U.S. It's used internationally. But this technology has been functional and it works to a point. But what happens is, and we end up doing this quite a bit, whether it's a product demo or just me conversing with someone and a management company rep, is having to do a little bit of educating that there are these old antiquated systems, and the functionality is there, and they've been working since 97 or before. But there are better ways. There's greater ways, and there's more innovative ways, and we can apply AI and technology in our case to not only demonstrate how we can be way more effective in the procurement all the way through the AP and payment side of things, but we can also bring so much more value to you, Mr. or Mrs. Hotel owner or manager, and to your team members that are actually using it every day. And then we demonstrate and create that value so many different ways. We'll talk a bit about time and the amount of time savings that you can get and what that could, literally equate to in a hotel operation. But yeah, I mean, I would just hammer home your point that, like, technology often gets this rap of like, oh, it's going to change everything. It's going to, replace jobs. It's not really. There's the personal touch side of hotels, which we'll get into. But what it can do is be a conduit to improve efficiencies, do things like create more time, value savings, all these points that we'll talk about. So I'll tell that story a bit further when we get into it.
Yeah, well, and that's a perfect segue, because what we wanted to do today is really taking your experience and talk a little bit about, so I'll be honest, right? We host the show weekly. We're booked out through the fall, and everyone wants to talk AI. But I've been really excited to talk to you today, because we're going to talk a little bit about, first, before we get to AI, talking about time in the hotelier world, talking about how it impacts operations, guest experience. And then I want you to educate us on how AI can help that. But let's start, let's put your hotelier hat on for a little bit. Talk to me about how, as an operator, is my time impacted, or does my time impact the guest experience and operations? Because you said it, post-COVID, the expectation is totally different. And I can only imagine how exhausted some of these GMs are. So talk to us about the impact on that experience and our operations that the time issue brings.
Yeah. So I think it's worth note that guests expectations have ultimately been altered since post-COVID, and that's a byproduct, I think, of the way we operated. I was in the operating space at that time. I got to go through the experience of, a lot of people being furloughed and laid off because of hotel levels dropping to historic lows from an occupancy and demand perspective, to a period of, there were hotels that were closed, shuttered, because there's just no business. And what had happened as it pertains to time is when we opened back up, and I'm speaking from the perspective of Florida, which was, one of those states that opened right back up, ready for business, is we went through this kind of frenzy of, oh gosh, we just laid everybody off. Now we've got to rehire, because we went from 0 to 100 real fast. And relatively speaking, it's like we went from zero occupancy to 50, 60, 70% in some hotels. And you didn't have a couple of things. Number one, you didn't have the staff or team members in place because you just, like I said, furloughed or laid them off. Second is you didn't have the resources, meaning, there was a bottlenecks in supplies and all this other stuff you need to operate your hotel on a day-to-day basis. And then lastly, it was like, where are you going to find the time to do all this? Because with the lack of those first two, particularly the staffing side, time is at a premium, at a crunch, if you will. So what had happened was we had conditioned, we being the operators, the management companies, ownership groups, that we could run these insanely busy levels in some hotels with a much smaller staffing model, many less managers and operators than that were happening pre-COVID, where, like anything over time, you just keep adding more and more and more to get to the point in a hotel where you're just so overstaffed. Now it's the polar opposite, right? So what had happened is it was just going. It was like a snowball effect down a hill. It was just building, hotels getting busier. But one thing that was remaining constant is we were understaffed, or we had just enough amount of staff to manage what was there, but occupancy and business levels came back to their high water marks. And one thing we ran out of was time, because now you have a single GM, maybe at a select service hotel, who all of a sudden has 15 different job responsibilities. You talk about the procurement. He or she was buying everything, processing it for payment, taking inventory, doing every aspect of the procurement process. And oh, by the way, managing the front desk and operations. And while that was happening, also having to be a revenue leader, because perhaps that GM was also in the system, putting, time sensitive offers or revenue management deals to yield rates, right? So all these things, these tasks, which many of them today we can fully automate, but many of these tasks were now putting the biggest crunch on their ability to manage time, their time to do perhaps the most important thing in the hotel space, which is service the guests. Right. So from the guest experience side, if you think about how this, you reiterate the point about time and how it kind of impacting not only the hotel operation, but now the guest facing part of it, which is very interesting, because the guest is the one who's willing to shell out all that money and pay the high rates and wants that amazing guest experience, irregardless what's happening on time constraints or what's happening in the back of the house. So that time crunch, or that time suck that started to happen, really started to cause, an imbalance, almost a negative output from operating side, resulting in a bad guest, potentially bad guest experience, which could the net result be less revenues, potentially bad reviews, and all that other stuff, if you will, that kind of goes awry when you have less time to focus on them.
I mean, even hearing you talk, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm stressed hearing this for for these GMs, because it makes so much sense. And I think what you just did is paint the picture of exactly why we shouldn't be as worried about, oh no, AI is going to take jobs, and more concerned about value. And hey, no, AI is going to add value back into your day, because no one can sustain what you just explained. And that's, turnover follows. Turnover follows, because who's going to do that? Nobody's going to be able to do that long term. And you're spot on. When I travel, with my family, with my husband, you have an expectation. You're not necessarily thinking about, maybe we do because we're in hospitality, but the regular guest maybe isn't thinking, oh, what all went into this experience on the staffing side of it. We just have an expectation. Hey, I paid for this, and here's what I was sold. And we want that property to meet the standard of what I was sold. So I think what you did is paint this phenomenal picture of, there's clearly pain. So let's embrace platforms that can help with that pain, instead of leading to burnout. And who knows? I mean, even what you just described, it's a tough place to be. And I'd love to ask you something. So before we dive into the AI part of it, how would you, and I don't want to throw you for a loop, but how would you define value as an operator?
Yeah, really good question.
Yeah, well, I hear a lot of vendors, and we've been guilty of it, say like what you said, like we're giving you back time. And I do think that's the most, we all need that. But if I said, okay, James, will quantify that for me, like tell me what real value is, what would you say?
Yeah, well, value, I think, and I hate to keep referencing post-COVID, but it's a good measuring stick.
No, I mean, you gotta use it.
Yeah, value has sort of transcended, I think, from the traditional aspect of like value means like, what am I getting for my money, right? Like that's always what value's been. I think it's transcended because now value, if you start to like sort of unpack value, it's different for most consumers of what their perceived value is and quality versus the next one. Like you just used the example of you and your husband and children perhaps have a different perception of what value is versus me when I travel to Miami for our office and what I'm looking for in value in my hotel stay, right? So I think we need to be looking at value for who and how are we presenting that value for the type of traveler we're trying to address or consumer. And again, it's applicable outside of hotels. I'm going to focus primarily on hotels, but when you think of a solution in the case, I know we're going to delve into AI, but you look at a technology solution, ultimate value comes from, I think, two things. Number one, yes, the time. That's probably the biggest because there's so much more you can do with time if you save a little and then apply it to guest experience, all these other aspects of the second is true savings on cost, right? So if you think of value from our solution, a procurement solution, there's so many ways that you can be represented through value in the cost saving side. So you talk about purchasing, right? If you have the ability to shop multiple vendors, much like you do on an Amazon type platform, you're going to get the best value. And it might be represented through the direct cost of something or the speed to which you're getting it. So there's value through the shipment speed, meaning like you order on Amazon, we all sign up for Prime. Why? Because we need that product today or tomorrow, right? So there's a perceived value there, right? Super relatable to the way you can do procurement in hotels with a technology like ours today. So a lot of value. The value also directly correlates to that guest experience because if you get something that you need for a guest arriving today or tomorrow, and you're able to make that happen through a purchasing platform, for example, you just created more value for that consumer who already has a value expectation when they arrive. So there's that part. There's potential on the saving side, right? So when you're shopping, as I mentioned, multiple sites, or you're shopping within certain suppliers and vendors, you might have value in being able to find a lower cost in something, right? So these are perceived quality and price driving value. There's also like value through things like personalization, which I did a whole panel a couple days ago in Miami about this AI and being able to personalize your experience. So I can talk just 2 seconds on that. And then lastly, I talk about convenience and time efficiency as a value factor. But the personalization value alone, if you think about Jasmine, I would reference someone who has like a frequent traveler account with one of the hotel brands. So a Bonvoy, Marriott Traveler, Hilton Honors Traveler. Creating value for them is of the utmost importance. Why? Because it creates like, we call it stickiness or loyalty within that program. So if you are creating or demonstrating as the hotel operating side value, let's just even say it's something as time at the check-in. If you've expedited that through a digital key experience or something like this, this creates a value that's not necessarily a cost basis or it's not necessarily a savings. It is a time efficiency or convenience value to your consumer passed directly onto your customer. That right there in itself is it's actually difficult to put a price on it because you're creating loyalty. And as we all know, loyalty is the one driver in our space and travel and hospitality as a whole that keeps people coming back and buying more. And it's, I don't have the statistics handy. I know one of the statistics I like is like 89% or maybe 90% of loyalty members rebuy. And those are the people who spend the most outlets within the hotel. So if you're a Marriott Traveler and you're a loyalty, one of their titanium or higher level loyalty programs, you're more inclined to spend more at the outlets. So the food and beverage, the bar, the rooftop, whatever it might be, right? And they have all that data and they're always, selling that aspect of it. So again, there's a value piece right there that's not necessarily cost related or time related, but it's more the efficiency and convenience value. Last one I'll leave you with is the value through purpose, right? So if you have things like time and cost already covered, but your back of the house or your front of the house operations is still looking at how do we create the V word value to that consumer, a lot of people travel with a purpose. And that
Right.
can be sustainability. It can be staying at a certain hotel because you support their initiatives, the brand's initiatives. Another extraordinary way that we demonstrate value. Here's a great one too of how you as an operator can incorporate technology to create that
Mm.
alignment and that purpose for the travelers, whether it's in a green initiative program that's being pushed through all your outlets, your guest communication, the back of the house guest communication to push those. So there's so many ways to demonstrate that value component.
I love it. I mean, and everything you just said, like it shows us that value is vast. It's not just time. It's not just cost. And those are the ones we always think of
Right.
as, technologists, but adding in everything you just said, it really all comes down to what is the most important for the individual person you're talking to as far as value goes. And really what also you've done is you've painted the picture for us how AI can come in and I think help create value. And what I'm hearing is like, it can also contribute to the human touch and hospitality because we hear this a lot, right? I hear it all the time. And I know you do of like, well, the more we get automated or the more AI comes in, the less we're going to be human. But actually what you're saying is no, let's take care of some of these other value adds through AI so that you can be upfront.
That's
and
right.
with your and doing why you got into hospitality in the first place, which is create a good experience, So
Yep.
let's, in our last 5-7 minutes here, talk to me about how AI is coming in on this. So you've painted the picture, you've taught us about value. Now I want to hear, in your opinion, and you've now been on both sides of the fence, tech and operator, how does AI come in and help without compromising that human experience? And then after that, we do have some comments coming in that we'll show on the screen, but jump right in and teach us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Jasmine. I will say this. I am not on the side of the argument that AI is going to replace humans, particularly as it pertains to the hospitality industry. We got into this space, speaking for myself, but people in general who work in this space because they either love people, the interaction, the engagement, the relationship. That's why I got into it. Or they are deliverers of hospitality, and that's what people do. I learned from someone a long time ago that to always be mindful that we are in the hospitality business, not the hostility business. And I will tell you that hostility is more inclined to happen with machines and technical side of it than it is with human interaction, right? So we have to be hyper cognizant that not everything can be replaced with AI. So with that being said, AI excels at certain things. One of the things it excels at is handling repetitive, task-driven, almost time-consuming tasks, remedial tasks that can be replaced with automation, for example, is one. This is what AI really excels at. It gives you the ability to free up humans, people that are working in the hotel business, gives them the ability to free up their time so that they can do things like have meaningful interactions with your hotel team members, with the hotel guest, obviously. So I would say first and foremost that AI should not be thought of as a replacement, but it should be thought of as a complement to what you're already doing.
That's great.
And I'll cite some specific examples. We already know, some of the early adoption of this type of technology is automating the check-in, check-out process, digital key, mobile key, whatever you want to call it. It's used. The adoption rate's probably not as high as they originally thought it might be because of outside contributing factors to it. But this is the first step that happened. And I think people at first were resistant. Certainly, people were like, oh, we don't need a front desk anymore. Well, guess what? Every hotel, for the most part, you go into still has a front desk. Why? You still need human touch. You need the interaction. For example, when I travel on business, I use digital key. When I travel with my wife and children, I experience the front desk check-in. It's just all part of the magical experience. You know what I mean? So, but in the case of AI, in the backside of that, the back of the house, why not lean on that technology to like a learning model, for example, to understand your consumer habits as it pertains to check-in. For example, what is some of the pre-work that can be done in advance of them checking in, where you can learn about their room preferences, room conditions, even the IoT that has settings for like, room temperature, lights on or off, all these type of things, which traditionally speaking, you would need someone to do, someone, a team member, can be automated. So here's about equipping your, front of the house operating side of the, front desk, back of the house side with AI technology to help enhance the guest experience, not replace any part of the guest experience. So simply adding AI through, automated IoT, I talked about purchasing, I'll delve a little bit more into that, is simply bringing more of the value and giving back of time to that front desk. I'm using front desk as an extreme example, but certainly applicable for housekeeping and food and beverage, to do one thing and one thing only, which is enhance the entire guest experience. So you've curated their arrival, you've curated their room experience already. You've perhaps curated food and beverage that's already in the room in the form of an amenity, because the learning model has already understood what Mr. and Mrs. Smith like for beer, wine, treats, and what their kids thought was a great treat last. So all these components of using AI and technology innovation as a whole to complement the offering that you're giving them. So I ended the conversation the other night on this panel about AI with, I think we're going down a path that allows things like hyper customization or personalization for people's stays, that perhaps in a few years, AI is certainly not going to be replacing the team members you'll see when you get to the hotels, but what it is going to do is enhance your entire experience from before you arrive, so at time of booking, all the way through the post checkout part, which is, how can my AI agent go ahead and rebook my next day at that hotel or that branded hotel in another part of the country and or world. So that's the guest side, and I'll leave you with a piece of the AI just for the back of the house, if you will, with while all that was happening in the front of the house, Jasmine, AI, if we were using it and are using it properly to make all those, food orders and everything happen. I'll use the example of Reeco since I know it best. Technology and AI in this case was already learned about what the hotel has purchased in the past as far as supplies, food and beverage, room operating supplies. So knowing on that weekend when that family was checking in that the hotel is running, let's say 100% occupancy, it knows based on what the hotel's ordered in the past and based on levels of demand, 100% occupancy in this case, it needs X amount of water and X amount of room supplies and all these other items to make that business operate the right way, and doing it so intelligently and in such a smart way that it's minimizing the amount of inputs needed from the staff, which, as we know, that can take away from them having time to engage with you and your husband and kids while they're experiencing the hotel, to now streamlining that process and making so much of it automated, all the way down to, taking the inventory of the hotel and making sure you have the right counts of the products on hand, because you got to know what you have in the hotel in order to prepare for a busy weekend upcoming, right? So these little things are where you can see we're leveraging AI to not take away from what the guest experience is, or to not replace necessarily jobs, or to not take anything away from the human side of it. It's to minimize the amount of redundancy and what I'd call, remedial tasks that can be automated and done through, AI, because that's what it excels at. So we need to look at it as an add-on, as a resource, and something that can accelerate what our hotel operations are doing.
Yeah. Well, and you've just painted the picture for us of this only enhances the guest experience. It's not going to, replace anybody. And I think you've done a phenomenal job of painting that picture. I also think, it will be interesting over time, and maybe you guys are already tracking this, but with Reeco, to start to see how much time quantified, right, in hours or hoteliers saving by using this platform. And that time you mentioned it makes me think of, as a business owner, right? You save money here to put it over here. Same thing with time. You save time here, you can put it over here. So I'm super excited about what you guys are doing. And I'm grateful for you kind of walking us through this journey today and understanding more. So informative. And we've had a couple comments, so I just wanted to share those really quickly here on the screen. Mostly comments, I don't see questions, but Kate Parrish of Event Temple, I wish this platform was around when I was in operations. Kudos to you and your team. Kate was a hotelier for many years and now
Thanks,
is
Kate.
on the tech side. Grateful
I thought the same thing the first time I launched that. That's why I'm here now working at Reeco.
It's true. And then my friend Sarah Stahl, also a hotelier and a marketing expert. Loyalty programs are so interesting. I wonder if and how they will adapt to tech. I think this is worthy of its own conversation. So
I could
we might
go.
do
I
it.
could go on for hours about the loyalty
Yeah.
programs and how I think it could work with Web3 space, but not only Web3 space, but how we could centralize people's information. I know it brings up a weird subject because they concerned about things like social scores and all that, but I'm actually have thought about how you can curate loyalty programs and all the. If you think about where your data is, you have data spread through so many loyalty programs, whether it's your rental car company, airlines, your credit card preferences. If there was somebody that could aggregate that information and do it in a safe, of course, data proofing way where it's not being shared, but more so it's being sort of aggregated into one spot, and then that information is what creates each user experience, whether you're going to a hotel or renting a car or going to a theme park, whatever, or dinner reservations. Imagine going to a dinner place and knowing precisely to put the menu in front of you of food that you like, because half of what you see on the menu, it's not your cup of tea. So get rid of it.
Yeah.
Why do we need to see it? Show me the things I love and curate my experience. So
I love it. This is our part two conversation. And then another hotelier and new friend and follower, Ellie, automating everything down to guest supplies count is an incredible thing to make use of. So kudos to you guys.
Well, thanks. I think that's probably one of the most valuable modules within our platform is automating, counting, ordering. You brought up that timepiece. We actually do have some metrics that we share, which are from some of our early adopters of Reeco from a year and a half. So they have a good sample size to measure, what their average order time was and what it is today. It's significant. A very simple yet important part of the process is their AP automation when they're automating, invoices and paying. A lot of people today do it manually still people in hotels writing on invoices and bills and then passing it along and somebody processes it. We have an entire AI module that automates that process. You never need to spend time again doing that. Go out and service your guests, delight your guests.
Amazing. And from the person that knows, I love it. And if anyone watching now or on our YouTube wants to get in touch with James, you can reach out to us with Affixify and we'll connect you. But James, how else can they find you if they want to follow you and hear more from you?
Yeah, sure. They can certainly find us at our company at reeco.io. So www.reeco.io. They can find me, same address there. It's James H. Simple as that. James H at reeco.io. If you reach out to me there, I will respond as fast as you can imagine.
I bet you will.
Talk innovation.
I love it. Well, James, thank you so much for being our second guest of the week. This has been just a pleasure. We're so grateful to have you. And for those listening, James's episode will be on YouTube in the next few days. You can always access it and share with your team there. And if you have any additional questions, just reach out in the comments and we can get you connected. James, thank you so much.
Jasmine, the Affixify team, you guys are awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
See you soon.